Hi everyone, this is Heather. Thanks so much for joining me. Today I've got a card tutorial for you and we're going to be making this fun Easter card where it looks like the little rabbit is juggling Easter eggs. Since it's a little difficult right now to maybe either get out or order online some crafting supplies, I decided to go ahead and shop my stash and just use some things that I already had at home on hand. So I got out this adorable Peeking Easter Friends stamp set from Gerda Steiner. Last year I made a cute Easter card with the little animals that are peeking. You can take a look at that on my channel. But today I wanted to use the little bunny and some of the separate Easter eggs. And today I'm going to be using some Masking Magic masking sheets so that I can ink blend my background. My cardstock base is just a purple 8.5 by 11 sheet of cardstock cut, score, folded in half. I also have a piece of white Bristol Smooth cardstock for stamping and ink blending, and it measures 3.5 by 4 3/4. I have a little piece of plaid pattern paper that's 4 by 5 1/4, an extra little snippet of that for some paper piecing, and some pale green for the grass. I've inked up my bunny with black Memento ink, and I'm stamping him on my Bristol cardstock. And I want to make sure I have enough room at the bottom for the grass to go. Next, I'm going to begin stamping my eggs around the bunny. I'm going to start off with the stripe one, and I just want to make kind of a half circle around the top of the bunny so that it looks like he's juggling them. So I'm going to put it at a little bit of an angle and space them out just a little. I've done the polka dot. I'm going to do the solid. I'm going to do the stripe egg again, this time with the top of the egg facing down, and one more time with the polka dot. When I'm stamping with black Memento ink on Bristol Smooth cardstock, I find that it does take a little while for the ink to dry because there's almost like a little bit of a coating on it. So you can let it air dry or you can hit it with your heat gun just to make sure that that ink is nice and dry and it's not going to smear. I wanted to add some fun little paper piecing elements. So the solid egg that the bunny is holding and the one at the very top are cut from the same plaid paper that I used for the background. I'm just going to ink up just the bottom half of the rabbit and stamp that on my small piece of plaid paper. I'm also going to stamp the solid egg, and I'm going to cut these out with my scissors. You want to stay right on the other side of the black line. So the solid egg is pretty easy and straightforward. On the one that the bunny is holding, you're going to need to cut around his little paws. Just take your time and maneuver your scissors around all those edges. So here's what those two little eggs look like now that I've cut them out. For the grass, I have a long grass die from Honeybee Stamps. I'm going to tape that in place across my piece of green cardstock and run that through my die cutting machine. I'm going to remove that repositionable tape. I'm going to move the die over and center it where I would like it to be, just kind of barely covering where the bunny rabbit is sitting, so it covers up kind of the bottom of the egg and his little feet. I'm going to turn this over. And with a pencil, I'm going to trace around that, and then I'm going to trim that away. With the grass trimmed down to size, I'm going to stamp "Have an Extra Special Day" across the grass border. To color my images, I'm using Tri-Blend markers from Spectrum Noir. For the main body of the bunny, I'm using their Tan Blend. I have a lot of videos about these markers on my channel. There's one in particular that is a pretty detailed product review, which you can check out if you'd like to learn a little bit more about these. Basically, it's an alcohol-based marker that has 3 shades of the same color. So they make for really quick and easy coloring and blending. With the lightest shade of this tan brown blend, I filled in the bunny staying away from the ears, the pads of his feet, and the egg in the lightest shade. I'm going to move to the darker shade and add some shading and shadowing. I'm pretending that the light is coming from the upper right-hand side, so I'm going to have a little bit of more shading and shadowing on the left side. With the darker shade laid down, I'm going to move into the mid-tone, and I'm going to overcolor between the dark and the light, kind of blending those in together. And then going back to the lightest shade, I'm going to blend everything all in together. I hope you can see on my card sample that I wanted to add a little bit of a furry texture to the bunny. So now that I've got all three shades laid down, I'm going to go back to the darker shade and just make little dashes. And I want them to be heavier on the left hand side, again where our shading and shadowing is the heaviest. Just kind of all around the edges of the stamp design, I'm just going to add these little dash marks. And it just gives a little bit more texture and more of a furry, fuzzy look to your bunny. And here's that texture added to the bunny. I'm going to move on to the pale pink blend. I'm going to color in the inside of his ears with the lightest shade, as well as his paw pads. Going into the darkest shade of the pale pink blend, I'm going to add some shading and shadowing. A lot of times when I'm working in smaller areas, I won't necessarily use all three shades of a marker. It just can get a little muddy. To me, it just looks a little bit nicer just to use the dark and the light. So I'm going to fill in his pads, give him a little pink nose, and some shading and shadowing in the ear. And here's my finished bunny. I'm going to move on to the eggs, and for the purple I'm using the hydrangea blend. I'm going to do the stripes on this egg on the right, polka dots on the one on top of it, and then fill in the main section of the egg on this other polka dot. Now with the darker shade of the hydrangea blend, I'm going to add some shading and shadowing to the eggs. Any side of the egg that is closer to the bunny is where I'm going to add the darker color. So going around the eggs, just going to add this darker shade where it's facing towards the bunny. I'm going to go in with the mid-tone and blend those in together. I'm moving on to the coral color. This is the coral blend. Same as before, I'm going to color in the sections with the lightest shade. I've done the background on this egg and the stripes on the other. Moving on to the darker tone, same thing. I'm going to have the heavier color closer to the bunny. And then blend those two together with the mid-tone. The last color is the blue turquoise blend. I do the same thing that I did on the other eggs with the stripes and polka dots on these two final eggs. And here's how my coloring looks now that it's finished. I'm ready to go ahead and start masking. So I've taken a sheet of the Masking Magic paper, and using the Stamps in Black Stays-On ink, I've stamped the images on the sheet. I've stamped 2 polka dots, 2 striped eggs, and the bunny rabbit. I've taken my scissors and I've carefully cut everything out. And all you need to do is peel the mask off of the backing paper and line it up over top of your images. Just make sure everything's lined up as perfectly as you can. I'm going to go ahead and mask off these eggs. I've got masks laid down on all of my images except the top egg, which we're going to put a piece of paper over top of anyway, so that's really just a placeholder. I'm using an ink blending brush. I've got Broken China Distress ink from Tim Holtz, my cardstock on a piece of scrap paper, and I'm going to ink up the background with the blue ink. Just soft swirling motions. Start with your brush off the paper and pull it towards the center. And you don't need to go all the way down because the grass will be at the bottom. When I'm happy with my ink blending, I can go ahead and remove my masks, and this is the fun part where you get the nice reveal. And be sure to save your masks. Just wipe the ink off the top and you can use them again later. I'm using a glue pen to apply glue to the back of my paper pieces. And I'm just going to fit those on top just like a little puzzle. And that gives me that cool plaid effect. I've applied tape runner to the back of the grass. I'm just gonna line that up around the bottom and the edges. I've applied tape runner to the back of my plaid piece. I'm gonna center that on my cardstock base. And the same thing with our little scene. And the last final touch that I wanna add to the card, I'm taking a permanent pin and I'm just adding a couple of little dash lines at the bottom of each egg, just to give that little extra look of movement of the eggs being juggled around by the bunny. So here's our finished card. I think now's a really great time to go through your stash, use some things that you already have that maybe you've never used or that you haven't used in a while, since it's kind of hard to get out and get some new paper crafting supplies. I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Be sure to check out my channel and subscribe, and I hope you have an extra special Easter. Bye.